Saul was headed up the stairway to heaven. His slightly stooped shoulders seemed particularly hunched this morning. Mary appeared suddenly at the top and began to descend rapidly. Saul glanced at the folder under her arm. It was clear from the high-quality printing and large label that it was Croesus's work. He nodded at it. "Bad?" he asked. "Bad," confirmed Mary. "He's just sitting in his office with the door closed." "That the flash demographic projection for the schism you got there, darling?" "Yep." "Bad?" "Bad," confirmed Mary again. She headed on down the staircase. Saul continued up to Peter's office, knocked quietly, and entered without waiting for an answer. A copy of Croesus's report was open on the desk. Peter was staring whitely at a graph. "How's it going, Saint?" began Saul.
"Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away,"
answered Peter.
"Now you need a place to hide away,"
asked Saul sympathetically. Peter nodded ruefully. "How did you get on with the Winter Woman?"
"Why she had to go, I don't know, she wouldn't say. I said something wrong," began Peter.
"Actually, that's rubbish. The only thing I said wrong was that we couldn't afford her ridiculous wage demands. And we can't, especially now I've read the demographic projections," he finished lamely, gesturing half-heartedly at the papers on the desk. "Now look, Peter, I'm sorry I was so rude in the board meeting last week," said Saul. "It's just, well, anyway, I've been thinking, and maybe it's not so bad after all." Peter looked up at him. "If you could just get your anti-popes back in the box where they belong reasonably quickly," Peter nodded hopefully, "then maybe I can use them constructively for my Reformation idea. You see, I could get my Luther chappie to say how the rising of the anti-popes illustrates the moral bankruptcy of the papacy and throws the need for reform into clear light. Or something like that, anyway. "I'll tell you what, Saint," continued Saul, "you can take the credit for it in the board meeting if you like." Peter brightened. "You know Mrs. Carpenter never gives me the credit for anything anyway. You could say you thought my Reformation idea needed strengthening, so you did your schism to lay the groundwork. How about that?" "Thanks, Saul," said Peter bluffly. "I apologise for mucking up the schism," he volunteered suddenly. "That's okay, Peter. Maybe you'll let me do the doctrine next time. It is my field of expertise, after all. We should all play to our strengths in a team," said Saul pointedly. Keen as he was on smoothing over any tension, there was no way he was going to let the opportunity pass to get Peter back off his territory. As Peter opened his mouth to answer, Saul changed the subject. It was so unusual for Peter to betray even a hint of humility that Saul felt sure he had taken the point. There was no need to rub it in. "Are you coming to the election night ball?" "You mean the one at the Soulbrokers Guildhall?" "Yes, the Four Horsemen are playing. Pestilence has the voice of an angel. I was at college with her. She had her own band there. I always thought she could have made it professionally. Then she met War, and he was keen on the business idea, and she went along with that instead of sticking with the singing. Mind you, they've made a killing." "Especially since they teamed up with the other two," added Peter. "Yes," said Saul. "It's just given them that extra cutting edge in the market. I mean, they did okay as two horsemen, but adding death and famine has given them a range of concepts to offer that the competition just can't match. Famine's such a sweet girl, too. You wouldn't think she was tough enough for that business. Anyway," he continued, "it promises to be a great party. Most of the soul brokers are coming, I've heard, and quite a few others connected with the industry." Peter didn't look completely convinced. "Well, you know, Saul, I'm not that much of a party animal myself, and my wife doesn't like lots of chances to network. The big boys are all expected. You know, Gautama will be there. I've heard Jupiter and Saturn are thinking of dropping in. Beelzebub and Hades are both coming from the refiners," interrupted Saul meaningfully. "You know, maybe I will just put in a brief appearance after all, Saul," said Peter. "What I have to do in the name of being a team player," thought Saul, as he bade Peter goodbye and headed back to his own offices. The Reformation needed urgent work if it was to be credible by the time the full investors' meeting was due.